Hey there, we're Shannon and Jerry Arner, your hosts of the Arner Adventures podcast.
We're a minimalist couple driven by intentional living and adventure.
Burned out from the 24/7 grind of running our business, we traded the hustle and the bustle for something more meaningful.
We parted ways with most of our belongings and moved to the coast.
Listen along as we chat about life's challenges, share inspiring stories of those who have taken big leaps to live a life outside of the norm,
And help you live with more intention and less physical and mental clutter.
Each episode is a step toward doing and being just a little bit better for ourselves and the world around us.
Life's an adventure after all. Join us for the ride.
It's the Arner Adventures podcast.
Hello, everybody. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Jerry.
We are back for episode 139 of the Arner Adventures podcast.
139. We're moving on up.
We're moving right along. What's amazing is every week it's another podcast.
I've noticed the consistency with that. It keeps moving forward.
Every week the number goes up.
It does. It's sort of like life in general. How everything just kind of.
I don't like to compare. Let me just say that. But one thing I do love is there was someone in the podcasting world that I really followed, admired. I still do follow and admire. And their podcast was like in the hundreds. And I was like, oh, I can't wait till we get into the hundreds. We have bypassed their number of episodes because they stopped being consistent.
Oh, wow.
Not that I'm hating on the fact that because I don't know what's going on in their life, but it does make me, again, I say this every week, how thrilled I am that we're so consistent. But
yeah,
nevertheless.
Well, why not?
Every single week I'm going to be so amazed.
It's something to, it's one of those things, those little landmark, not a landmark, but a thing that shows that you're moving right along.
Yes.
And the more you can, instead of the really big things, it's nice to have week-to-week things.
It's like when you were a kid and they would measure your height. Your parents would measure your height.
Yeah.
On a, wall or something. We had like a piece of paper thing that was on the wall that we did. Anyway, I digress. This is getting off.
Oh, no,
task.
I did that too. I had the marks on the wall. And they'd say, we did that last Saturday. And I'd say, well, this is this Saturday. Get out your pencil.
Well, last week we had an episode about becoming a one-car family, which it seemed like a lot of you really enjoyed. Thank you for your support in that. On the car front, on the auto front, we decided that this week we would tackle something that's near and dear to us because we both experience it in a different way. It's driving anxiety.
Driving anxiety.
And how to manage stress in the car.
How to manage stress in the car. I'm your Ed McMahon today. I just repeat everything. Yeah, everything you say.
That's actually stressful.
It was stressful to Johnny too, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
As much as we love traveling, we do have some travel anxiety. We've talked about in our blog before about airport anxiety, but we're not even talking about like road trips here, anxiety about road trips. We're talking about driving anxiety that can arise in any situation, not just travel.
Well, yeah. And it can come up anywhere. And, like around here where we are now, there's a lot of tourism this time of year. It's still in tourist season for a few more weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, during that time, even though this is really a very small populated county, when it's tourist season, all that tourist traffic is kind of packed together. So I can get as much anxiety there as I can in city traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is driving anxiety? It's what it sounds like, except for we just wanted to make sure that, some people just get stressed out in traffic or whatever, but it's a fear or discomfort that some people experience when they're driving or think about driving. So sometimes people call it fear driving, panic driving, and it can manifest itself into panic attacks or high anxiety in different situations. It could be extreme traffic. It could be driving on highways, windy roads, over bridges, or at night.
Well, yeah, and a panic attack too. Think about that. Is as stressful as that is. It's one thing if you're having it sitting in your chair at home because you've just seen a bad episode of Mama's Family or something, but to have it while you're driving is. Yeah, that's
scary.
It's a little scary. Yeah, so it's something you really have to elevate your awareness of and kind of know which we're going to get into, ways to sort of alleviate that stuff. If you're anything like us and have a deep love for the ocean, you are a thalassophile.
Well, we've got something special for you. It's the Thalassophile Soy Candle from our collaboration with Southern Oak Artisan.
This hand-poured candle is crafted with the highest quality ingredients like all of Southern Oak Artisan's products. 100% natural soy and clean oils, completely free of toxins. You can enjoy the ambiance it creates without sacrificing your health.
I love that you said ambiance correctly.
Yeah, thank you.
The scent, it's like bringing a day at the sea right into your home. Perfect for all you ocean lovers out there.
Or should we say, thalassophiles.
But it's more than just a candle. Once it's finished burning, this adorable jar can be repurposed.
Head over to arneradventures.com/shop to get your Thalassophile soy candle and check out our other mindful wares.
And the best part, a portion of every purchase goes to support mental health advocacy groups, which you can read all about on our Mindful Wares page.
So light up your life, support a great cause, and bring a bit of the ocean's magic into your home with the Thalassophile soy candle.
Again, that's at arneradventures.com/shop. And now let's get back to the show. Well, do you want to talk about our personal experiences with this?
Personal experiences with this. Yes, Shannon. Gosh, and I feel like I've had many, and I can't think of like right off the top of my head real specific ones because it's just a general thing. A lot of times I'm just like, oh, I just don't like driving. I'm nervous on the road. What's that guy doing? And and stuff like that. I can't say any like jump out as these specific incidents, although I'm sure I'll think of a few.
Well,
you got any specifics?
Well, I was going to say, I don't, and I'll talk about mine in a minute. I'm not just putting Jerry under the spotlight. I'll talk about mine too. But like for you, I don't remember it being an issue when I first met you. But I don't know if that's because you really only drove around Raleigh. I mean, not highways of Raleigh. Raleigh traffic's terrible, but I feel like you had sort of a small area you were driving. But like I remember road trips and I don't remember you having issues. So did it manifest itself later in life or?
Yeah, I think maybe it did. And I think I read where things like that tend to get worse with age sometimes. I think there was always elements of it there and they just sort of compounded in one way or the other, but it's not like it's such a consistent problem. It's just a here and there kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I go for good whiles periods of time when I'm not really that, thinking about that too much. And then, I don't know, maybe sometime then a combination of things, maybe you didn't get some good sleep for a while or got a lot on your mind can put you back in a place where then the driving too might bother you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so on the other end of things, I have anxiety being a passenger, even though I do look, I don't like to drive all the time, but I also know that there are times where being a passenger causes me a lot of anxiety. And I remember talking to my primary care doctor about this one time, and he is the first one who brought it up, who at the time, he was like, this is probably a loss of control for you. Like, it's probably that. And then in more recent years with my therapist, I talk about, I'm like, I just wish like sometimes I could just be carted around and almost have like a chauffeur. But then I get really anxious. And she said, it's probably a loss of control. Of you not feeling like you're in control of things. So like when you were talking about, you worry about other people on the road, what are they going to do? I don't even worry about that so much. I'm like worried about who is in the car driving me around. What are they going to do?
Yeah. And I mean, that's understandable too. I tend to drive pretty defensively. Yet more of mine is maybe just like, drive defensively and be concerned because I don't really trust what other people are going to do.
And I consider myself in offense because I'm like, I got to get to the basket quickly and get the shot done.
That's right.
And let me maneuver around these people and just get it done.
Yeah, I might have taken 3 steps after I picked up the dribble, but if the ref doesn't see it, It's all good, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, okay, so what we thought we would do is go through tips that, now listen, we are not doctors. This is not to replace therapy. We just thought we would share things that we have found that work for us in therapy during our research,
Uh-huh.
tips on how you can overcome or at least manage driving anxiety. And I wanted to first of all make sure that we also talk about, this isn't just us. I was doing some digging
Mhm.
in my research for the episode.
Okay.
I like to do that.
I know you do. Yeah.
And I found that 66% of Americans have driving anxiety.
And I wasn't surprised when you told me that. I
I
mean,
was.
you tend to isolate yourself and think, oh, what's wrong with me? Nobody else is
Yeah.
feeling this way. But the road's more populated and the culture moves a little bit faster, and that gets that way more so on each one of those aspects, probably every year. And you think about that, and it makes sense that people would have more driving anxiety out there, I think.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, do you want to start?
I do. I do. So number one is to take baby steps as far as your drives go.
Or baby drives.
Baby drives. Baby drives.
Okay. There was a joke coming there, I can tell.
We'll put that on the back burner.
Okay.
Well, yeah. If you, I think like in anything else, if you're having a problem, maybe start with small steps. You could take small drives in lower traffic areas like neighborhoods or rural sections. And that could be helpful if you have a long drive that's making you nervous. And so go out and get in your car and then take some small drives and work your
Mm-hmm.
way up to that bigger drive you
Sort
have
of
to
a
take. Yeah.
slow exposure.
That's right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, number two is, and this is something I love to do in all
Sure.
situations, is plan ahead.
Uh-huh.
So, there's going to be times where you're like, I have to get on the road. Maybe it's an emergency. Maybe it's something that quickly happened and you have a long trip or whatever. But if you know something is coming up, like a road trip or something that you're going to have to deal with, whether, maybe it's driving at night. Maybe someone has anxiety. We know someone who has anxiety about driving at night. And so if you have anxiety about driving at night and you have to do it, go ahead and map out your route, avoiding stressors. Now, the stressor is obviously going to be at night, but maybe, have things planned out with some of the other steps that we're going to talk about. But, the downside of sort of having something pending is that you ruminate and that you almost like obsess over it, or you could.
Sure. Yeah.
So, don't do it so much that you're just really obsessing over it, but just have a plan and know that you're going to control the things you can control
Mhm.
and, try to make yourself as comfortable as possible and envision yourself being comfortable on that drive. I really believe in visualization.
Visualization techniques. Yeah, they
Mhm.
can be really helpful. Just set it in your mind that this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah,
And I've done this many times before, and there's no reason I can't do it now.
right.
Um, Practice deep breathing techniques is our number three. And this is good for any aspect of life, but because a lot of people don't really breathe deep. They sort of breathe shallow, and you really sort of have to develop a sense of awareness and and observe yourself breathing to learn how to breathe deep, and then you realize, oh, I've never breathed deep before, and that started back during a weekend marathon of Mama's Family on the USA Network once, and
Mama's Family was real stressful for
ever
you.
since then, I've never been able to take deep breaths. So anyway, but that'll help you stay calm and keep your heart rate regular, and
Yeah.
you can maintain a better sense of calm.
You
And
can also do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
yeah, that's good.
And I'll link this down in the show notes. It's
Uh,
a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, almost like trying to avoid an anxiety attack, but it's also just a really mindful way of breathing.
yeah,
It helps me. I do it every single morning down by the water, and
Yeah.
it just helps reset.
Remind me, I hadn't done well. 5 things you see, 4 things you hear.
5. So you always tell me that I have 2 of them mixed up. So don't concentrate on which one is which, because it's okay. It's really just to get you to focus on different things.
Yeah.
But I start with 5 things I see,
Uh-huh.
and then I do 4 things that I hear.
Right.
And I'll tell you what I do with that. I close my eyes,
Okay.
and then I'll go, okay, what do I hear?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I hear the birds. Oh,
Yeah.
I hear that wave up against that boat. Or I feel like I hear better when I close my eyes.
Right, right.
And then it's 3 things that I smell,
Uh-huh.
or it could be vice versa. I actually think I do 3 things that I feel, because then I think it's like,
Oh.
I feel the jacket on my neck,
Yeah.
or I
yeah.
feel the wind on my face, or whatever.
Mhm.
And then 2 things that I smell, and then
Yeah.
1 thing that I taste.
Yeah. Which that's an easy thing to remember because you can really only taste one thing at once.
That's exactly right.
I guess. I mean, you could have 2 different tastes. If you have onions on your burger, you could taste the burger and the onions.
Well, I
at the
was
same
going to
time.
say, some people use the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as like a meditation process, and
Oh,
they do
yeah.
it with mindful eating.
Oh, okay.
So instead of, sitting in front of the TV and eating their food, and they don't really know what the food is and all
Mm-hmm.
that, they'll do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to have all of their senses involved in their eating.
Oh.
It's also a way of slowing down your eating.
Yeah, I like
So-
that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, breathing techniques, and I'll get on this too, and we won't get too far on it. Jerry and I do listen to this app at night called Better Sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and the narrator that we love, her name is Aster, which
Esther.
we're gonna have her on a future episode.
We are.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Yeah. Might I say, after Neil Young, she's one of Canada's best exports.
I
ever.
mean, she is. I cannot wait, because
Yeah.
she lulls us to sleep every night, and I can't even believe we're gonna be talking to her in real life. But
yeah.
nevertheless, we were really digressing on this. But one of the things that I learned about myself is that she seems to start almost every single, bedtime, hypnosis, meditation, whatever, with deep breathing.
yeah.
And when when I do it, I like immediately start calming down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like a way that you're telling your body, hey, you're not in fight or flight. You're
Right.
not having to push through just to survive. It's like a reset. It's so
Yeah.
helpful. So
And it goes to show you, it helps to have somebody step you through it.
yes.
It's something you think you can do on your own, but sometimes it helps to have somebody kind of guiding you through something.
Yeah, we'll link the app down in the show notes too, because they also have, even though it's for sleep, there's also some breathing exercises you can do just midday.
Yeah,
But anyway, it's my turn, and I've been talking so much that I didn't even think it was my turn. But number 4 is to stay in the moment. So this is something that you and I have talked a lot about. We've learned a lot about, read a lot about through the years, is be here now.
right.
And so when you're having driving anxiety, focus on the task at hand. So my therapist always tells me anxiety is it's really like your brain being fearful of what's not now. It's always like trying to tell you, oh, you should be scared of this thing that might happen, probably not going to happen
Yeah.
days from now, years from now, or the past. It's never in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what's happening with driving anxiety too. So if you focus on the task at hand, which is really just getting yourself from here to there safely,
Uh-huh.
then that can help. Like, even though your mind might be trying to take you into these different places, worst case scenarios, if you just pay attention to the road and what you're doing, it will really help.
That is true. And that reminded me too of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's a good way to stay in the moment. Now that's kind of hard to do while you're driving, I think. That's a lot of thinking. What 5 things do I see? You got to concentrate on the road or the car in front of you. But yeah, that is staying in the moment if you can. Oh, and I've heard too that a good way is to look at landmarks. Not look so hard you go off the road, of course,
Yeah.
but like glance landmarks, and that's a good way to occupy your mind in the moment. And I've
Sure.
done that. It's helpful. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I quite like that. Yeah.
You know something, talking about the planning, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this.
Not at all.
One thing that you do, and everybody has this on your GPS, whether you use Waze or Google Maps or whatever, is that you have it avoid highways.
Oh, yeah.
And so you take more scenic routes.
Yes. I love doing that, going to back to the Raleigh area from here where we live on the North Carolina coast. It's about, I think, a 2 hour, 45-minute drive. But if I switch to scenic routes, it brings it up to 3.5 hours. And I'll
Hmm.
gladly take that extra 45 minutes it adds.
Yeah.
It's such a more, I love driving those back roads. It's calming. It makes the drive more enjoyable as far as you get to look at the countryside,
You know, I had a particularly high anxiety, stressful period. I mean, I feel like I'm always in that, but period a couple months ago or maybe a month ago, I don't remember, and I was driving to my mom's
Yeah.
and I did the same thing.
Yeah.
And normally I can get to my mom if I'm driving, I'm by myself, I can get to my mom's in a little less than 6 hours because she's
Yeah.
on the other side of the state. This time it took me about 7.
Yeah.
But I did that because I just didn't want the stress
Yeah.
of just like highway stuff, you know?
It's a worthwhile way if you have the day really for not much else but the trip.
Yeah.
Take that extra hour. It makes it a lot more enjoyable. And why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, a calming playlist
Is that number 5?
and that's number 5 on our
Okay.
list.
Okay.
Thanks for the reminder.
Uh-huh.
Making a calming playlist. Yeah, and that for me, podcasts or music, in general, but I think I like all kinds of music, but I think I respond to whatever type of music it is. So I don't, upbeat, fast-paced dance music can be fun around the house while you're doing chores, maybe to push you along, but you probably don't want that while you're driving. You probably want something kind of calm.
Yeah.
And something calm and soothing, maybe acoustic music over electronic music, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh. Or some podcasts if they're, I always say try to do like happy, positive podcasts,
Right.
or maybe if you're going to learn something, podcasts. I
Yeah.
would not, listen to news or anything like that because it's really just going to bring your anxiety up. Let's not
Yeah.
kid ourselves.
Right. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, adjust your podcast or your music listening to something calming to
Yeah.
enhance your trip. That's the way to go.
I remember my mom and I were driving from Vegas to, I might have been going to Joshua Tree or it might have been from there to Palm Springs. I don't remember. But
Uh-huh.
there were these long, long desert highways
Yeah.
that were cool. They were cool for about 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Then you get to where you're just like, oh my God. Like if, your mind starts going, what if the car breaks down? What if,
Right.
what are we going to do? It's like deathly hot out here.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, we were listening to like some serial killer murder podcast.
Right.
I'll tell you, after an episode, and I love that stuff,
Uh-huh.
we had to change it.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah.
And she and I both love, I mean, we all love that stuff.
Oh, we like watching real crime.
I think it
things,
was about
docs.
the murder, the guy who killed the college kids, the Brian whatever,
Uh-huh.
Kohlberg, whatever his name is, something Burger.
Yeah.
And it was like a deep dive into that. And I'm going to tell you, it really sent me to, and I was driving,
Yeah.
and it sent me into a place that I was like, this isn't good.
Yeah.
let's change it.
Yeah.
So even if you think you love that stuff, the true crime stuff, maybe read the room. Read
Yeah,
the
right.
highway, read your
Read the
situation,
highway, yeah.
and see if it's appropriate for that certain situation.
On
Is
your
all I'm
long
saying.
desert highway trip, that might not be the.
If the Golden
Okay.
Girls podcast existed at the time, that would have been a great alternative.
That would have.
I'm digressing here. If you're a Golden Girls fan, please, for the love of God, listen to the Golden Girls Deep Dive podcast. It's a compliment to my life that I wish had been here all along. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, you've been diving into that, like
It's amazing.
crazy,
I'll link
yeah.
it down in the show notes.
Yeah, but yeah, as far as your long desert highway drive, that's you do want to,
Yeah.
just maybe cool wind through your hair and the sweet smell of something going through the air is what you Opt out for that over a scary
Yeah.
podcast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, number
Oh, I was
6.
hanging on that one for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't shut up. I wouldn't shut up. Can you tell I've had a lot of coffee this morning?
Yeah, right.
Number 6 is, if possible, bring support.
Yeah.
So, we'll do the situation of driving and passenger because we both have anxiety about that, right?
Right.
Sometimes we like to almost force ourselves into that situation. So Jerry says, "I'll drive," and I'm like, "Oh God!" Like I don't. Being the passenger is not the greatest for me. But that sort of means we both are going, "Hey, we need to work through this,"
Yeah.
and so we just do it, and we're almost a support for each other, which is
Mhm.
nice. So if you can bring a support person, especially if you're doing the slow immersion type thing, that's really good. It can also, be almost a distraction, but also in the be here now thing. I was thinking earlier when you were talking about the 5 4 3 2 1 wouldn't be great if you, or it's not easy when you're driving, but if you have someone with you, then I think they can walk you through and go, okay, find 5 things you can see right now. And then, okay, 4 things you can hear. And then that way you're not thinking about the next steps, but you're walking through it still. I think
Right.
that can be really great to have a support person.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Well, and moving along, number 7, avoid caffeine before and during driving. And I don't do too good with caffeine anyway. So I usually go with I like a little coffee in the morning though, so I go with a half calf. And before heading out on a drive, before heading out on a long drive, I probably wouldn't have any coffee.
Yeah.
Or I might make some, and then when I'm comfortable in the drive and well adjusted and feeling good, I say, hey, I have a few sips of that coffee, just to give myself a little bit of a boost, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because when we first met, you were like a coffee connoisseur. Like I just feel like you were all about coffee and the taste of it and all of that. And
Yeah, I think it was always the taste. I always just really liked the taste of it,
yeah.
especially. But there's the other side of it that has caffeine, so
Yeah.
that can be. I don't know. I'm just not built for much caffeine at all.
And it's interesting because I feel like I sort of thrive on having my coffee in the mornings. But,
Yeah.
we were on a trip recently and we did not have control over the coffee.
Ah,
And you remember I had I had 2 cups in the room. And then I ended up having more of the iced coffee. And I was feeling like I was very jittery and did not like the feeling of it.
Oh yeah.
So I sort of was thinking, oh, if that's how Jerry gets, this is not a good feeling.
Yeah, you reached your threshold, which is a lot higher than mine, but yeah, you found it and you realized
Yeah.
it wasn't a good feeling.
Well, number 8 is, of course, work with a therapist. So you can work with a professional therapist. In my research share, I found that there are driving therapists.
Oh,
Mhm.
interesting.
So if you want to, if you don't really have much else, I feel like we all can benefit from a therapist. But
Mhm.
if you don't have much else you want to deal with, and you can find a driving therapist, do that. But a therapist, just like Jerry and I can help you develop strategies, coping mechanisms to overcome or manage your driving anxiety.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, a therapist is, like you said, a good option overall, but driving therapist, I like
I
that.
know.
Yeah. Boy, anybody that thought about that 10 or 15 years ago was really looking ahead and thinking about a possible good career path. Because
Yeah.
these days I can see where that might be needed in the sort of more aggressive culture that we have out there now.
Right.
Number 9, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about it. It's number 9. Like anything, it's and yeah, like me, it's my natural tendency maybe to be a little more introverted and not realize that I'm bottling, that's the way we say it around here, bottling up all the thoughts in my head. And and then when you let it out and talk about things, and in this case too with driving, it can be a good thing. Or I might add, write about it if you're a journaler.
Uh-huh.
That makes it it puts the thoughts out there on a page. It makes it sort of tangible, something you can read back, and it's a good way where it's not swimming around in your head. You've put it there on a paper, you can see it, and it's helpful. It's very therapeutic.
I feel like you were talking about with anything, it's just like if we're struggling with depression or anxiety or anything, the seasonal affective disorder,
Yeah.
anything that we're struggling with, I think in most situations when you do talk about it, there's someone who's going to be like, oh, I have that too, or I get that way too.
And you're always surprised. Oh, there's
Yes.
really?
You don't feel so alone.
Yeah.
Speaking of driving anxiety, and I don't think my mom would mind if I said this.
Uh-huh.
I'll ask her and I'll have to edit this out if she did. But you and her both talked about this, and I thought it was sort of terrifying in a way. But you both had mentioned a couple years ago that you had envisioned yourselves driving off of the road or off of a bridge or into traffic.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had
And this, please know that this isn't a wanting to end your life type of thing. They both just said when they were talking about driving anxiety, they both were talking about how they can picture that.
yeah, it might be kind of common. I had first talked about that when I was back in high school at our friend Mark Perry. Mark, if you're out there. And Mark was a funny guy too. So Mark told me that I think he went to a therapist in high school, and he told me, I think one of the reasons took him there. He said, "Yeah, I'd be driving down the road, and I just felt like I was going to have this impulse to turn my car towards the left into other traffic." And I said, I've thought about that too. Like, what if all of a sudden my hand jerked to the left and I went right into the other car? Now, that hasn't happened to me in years and years, I don't think. But
you or
it
mom
has.
mentioned it,
Yeah,
and then the
yeah.
other one was like, "I feel that way too."
Yeah, so I get the feeling it might be kind of common. It's just like a thought, like what if that happened? So it's kind of a weird thought, but yeah, I remember talking about that with my buddy when we were teenagers.
And I remember you and mom talking about it.
Uh-huh.
It's interesting, but anyway, you're not so alone with your challenges when you share them with the community, which is what we're doing now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, indeed.
Yeah. So speaking of, you're not alone. We talked about 66% of Americans experience driving anxiety.
Uh-huh.
If I could find the stat worldwide, I'm sure that would be pretty impactful. But
Yeah.
like anything, don't be ashamed of your fears, any challenges that you have. Always, always know that you're not alone. And if you're looking for professional help, there are different platforms out there that you can find something. It doesn't matter how you find it, just find it. We found our therapist through Mental Health Match. We always talk about recommending this to other people who found their therapist, but Mental Health Match, it's linked in the show notes. It's a free platform. You can get on there and plug in sort of things you want to deal with, your preferences in a therapist if you have them. If you have insurance, if you don't have insurance, and it will give you some matches of potential therapists that you can work with.
Well put. And I think number 139 is in the books at this point.
It is.
If this episode resonated with you, or if you know of someone who would benefit from what we talked about, please share it with a friend.
It's a great way of supporting the podcast, and we really appreciate it.
Another way of supporting the pod is by leaving us a 5-star review or rating on the platform you are listening to us on.
And go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That also supports us. You can always find us, the show notes, and sponsors who support the podcast at arneradventures.com.
And until next time, enjoy the journey you're on. We're wishing you lots of adventures.
Bye-bye.